Hello, once again, folks, to another episode of I Ruined It, the art series where I take some of your favorite childhood things and I ruin them. Today's episode, we're going to be taking the character of Kuriboh from the famed children's card game Yu-Gi-Oh! And we're going to see what we can do with him. Without further ado, let's see how it goes. Alright, so, I picked Kuriboh because, honestly, the series is a little hard to do as a your favorite things when I'm not getting much for suggestions. So, I just went with something that I liked from when I was a kid. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was about, like, the trading card game. Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was about 5, 6 years old is when I first got a starter deck Joey Wheeler. Yeah, that tracks. And, I remember I had plenty of times trying to pay attention to how the game was played from watching the show and trying to read that instruction booklet when I was like 5, 6 years old so that I could play with my my dad, because he's a pretty big fan of like fantasy things and tabletop games. And all these years later, I don't know exactly what it was about the series, but something just stuck, and I still play. I, granted, don't play the tabletop card game as much as I used to, but I still play from time to time with a buddy of mine, and a lot of you might know him. It's actually Cryptic Dream, the guy that I do the or did versus lock with. Him and I will meet up in person and we'll play a couple matches or even just rounds depending on what time we have. But I've also been getting back in and playing Master Duel again for like the 4th time in the last 2 years. So, although I have more personally favorite monsters from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, I figured Kuriboh would be a little bit more recognizable for some of you folks that just have like the nostalgia of watching the show. And that being said, the way that we're ruining it today, if it wasn't super obvious, is we're going to be taking Kuriboh from the anime kind of art style that was highly popularized for the card game by the late Kazuki Takahashi, and we are going to be giving it a more Western animation style, trying to make him look more like a Nickelodeon sidekick character. I'm just picturing, instead of the chirping and cooing that Kuriboh does in the anime, he rather has like a series of one-liners, like, and some kind of a Brooklyn accent akin to Joey Wheeler from the Team 4-Star Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series. Or no, not Team 4-Star. The Little Kuriboh. Wow, full circle here. Abridged series of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. But despite the fact that Kuriboh doesn't have a personally big place in my heart, that doesn't mean that he does. The character and the franchise itself doesn't have just such significant meaning to some of the longer relationships I've had with people. Some good memories from when I was a kid. So I really wanted to do my best to do good with Kuriboh, just like I do with any other character. So, as you see here, I went through and started with that base kind of darker hair. It's kind of funny thinking back now. Kind of looks like my hair from the intro for this. a little squiggly and all over the place. Something I did do a little bit differently in this one, though, is instead of doing the mask shading like I normally do, I went through and I did the kind of cell shading more so. Building up those low lights on the bottom eventually, and then the highlights up top. You'll see that in a moment here. I just really wanted to make sure that the teeth were all uniform and white, so that when I made the background later, they wouldn't dilute away, and I wouldn't have to worry about trying to avoid the mouth line when drawing the background. But yeah, right here you'll notice, rather than doing my regular masking, I'm just taking that shadow color that's on the Kuriboh reference, and we're just going through and doing a little bit more, I guess not technically cell shading, but something a little bit more reminiscent of cell shading, where we build up the highlights and the lowlights, but instead of blending it, we're just going to keep it with these harsh lines similar to our reference Kuriboh, so that we can kind of mimic or I guess not mimic, it wouldn't be mimic, it would be a mock up, that's the word for it. Wow. Mock up where some of these secondary curls would be in the hair, or rather build some depth on some of the other tufts as they're kind of flitting upward. This portion's gonna take a little bit because I was being a little extra meticulous with a almost extra too small brush. But then, per usual, I'm spending too much time flickering between colors just to make sure that I'm on the right channel for everything. We're gonna go through and build in our shadows for like the edge of the fists and the tops of the feet where the hair is kind of covering over top of it. Then from here, we are going to get rid of our reference image, like that. And after a long moment here, we go and we make our, honestly, pretty basic background. Like I mentioned, the inspiration for this Kuriboh was a lot of Western cartoons and animation for how I wanted the style to be. So it's just going to be a very basic kind of blue-gray paletted background, almost akin to the first couple of seasons of Fairly Odd Parents, where a lot of those backgrounds were just kind of like static shapes that kind of float over the lines a little bit, more so to just have something back there. I had realized that my initial background was a little too dark, so we brought up the color value just a little, or the white value just a little bit, by using our dodge tool, I believe is what it's called. Don't quote me on that. And then I just wanted this spotlight almost as if we're kind of introducing him as a new character on the show. I tend to do this one a lot. It almost makes these individual pieces feel like museum characters or display pieces. And then from here, I realized I should maybe add a little bit more of a highlight on the top of the head, just to kind of emphasize the fact that it's got that top spotlighting. But folks, with that, that's going to be about it for this week's episode. If you have an idea for a future episode, leave a comment down below. If you like what you saw, hit the like button and feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, bye.